The battle was barely over, and the guild leader stood motionless with his sword, engulfed in tongues of flame. His sword and all his clothes were covered in a green liquid, and his eyes were glowing with an unnaturally bright white light. It seemed that just a little more and his sanity would be consumed. This was really dangerous, thought the guild leader. If I hadn't released all of my power, my rationality could have been consumed. This is the second time this happened since my awakening. That I was able to use my skill properly. I was wrong though. He is no standard awakened. The moment that ability is found out, the whole world will focus on him. The guild leader continued his logical analysis, realizing that the hero was no ordinary man. They stood silently for a while watching the remains of the monster queen burn away. The air was saturated with smoke from the strange sweet smell of the green liquid. The protagonist watched the pin-colored mana remnants evaporate around him. That's an overwhelming amount of mana. You can't even compare her with the other dungeon-era bosses, he was thinking in his head. At that moment he called out to the guild leader. Hey, do you feel something from this corpse? To which the guild leader replied to him. Nope, she is definitely dead. Since we got rid of all of the remnants, she won't come back to life either. Okay, said our hero. So it seems that even a high-grade hunter can send the mana. The next second, there was a notification from the system. Passive skill, mana absorption activated. The protagonist has realized that the ability to absorb mana in his alone. The guild leader has no such ability. And in the next instant every square centimeter of his body began to absorb huge streams of pink mana. The system showed him a new message. Passive skill, mana absorption. You are absorbing and accumulating the polluted mana's energy from the dungeon. When the accumulated mana hits the fixed amount, you will receive a new reward. You have obtained a new skill. Demonic weapon production. Current active skill, demonic weapon production. By using 100 of the accumulated mana you can make weapons of the demonic realm, demonic weapons. The demonic weapon made once will be saved and can be materialized without any additional mana consumption necessary. Can use once per day. Lasts for 10 minutes. This new notification from the system surprised our hero. Demonic weapons, a weapon of the demonic realm. I can't even imagine that kind of weapons they would be. I don't remember any concept of the demonic realm, but it's the one we all know of, right? Although it's a shame there is no mana-related rewards, that's okay. A new system notification popped up. Our protagonist still looked at the system notification that showed him that he had gained half of the required amount for the new reward. Thanks to Arachne, I've already reached half of the mana necessary. And it doesn't seem like the rewards will end with this. The guild leader interrupted his thought process with his address to him. Shin Junso, I have something to say. I first want to apologize. Regardless of your refusal, I kept asking you to join our guild, which was impolite as a person regardless of my duty as a guildmaster. The words of the guild leader clearly surprised our hero, who expected him to ask to join the clan again. I would like to apologize for this. I'm truly sorry. He finished saying these words and his head gradually tilted forward. Our hero froze in amazement, as if he didn't know what was happening. While one of the hunters, one of the team members, watched the whole thing from the sidelines, he couldn't believe his eyes. What am I seeing right now? He shouted to himself. Is Yoon Taeyeon currently blowing his head to a D-ranked helper? No, based on his ability earlier, he is definitely not a normal person. That helper might be a hidden talent of the Overkill Guild. That was tough. He turned over his shoulder to see two team members walking toward them. The man with the sword shouted happily. Party leader, we searched everywhere. There aren't any remnants left, and the girl with the pink hair added to that. The hunter happily continued to praise his new weapon. But isn't the weapon awesome? I could slice through monsters without exerting any energy. And the girl added, yeah, I've never heard of a maker who can make weapons like this. Is he related to the Overkill Guild? Before she could finish her words, a man in armor was running toward them. Let's leave for now and contact the association. With some strange funny expression on his face, he quickly waved his arms trying to cover the picture of the two men behind with his body. The guy and the girl said that this reaction is pretty weird. The man with the sword added, pardon? Is there a particular reason we should leave already? To which the girl said, yes, I want to thank the guildmaster and that helper first. As if not listening to what they were saying, the hunter in armor continued to persuade them to leave this dungeon, actively waving his arms and pushing them toward the exit. We've got it, so stop pushing, the sword-wielding hunter shouted without holding back his emotions. Regardless, it's definite that that helper is related to the Overkill Guild. It's good to leave now. If we interfere and get involved with the business of a big guild, things will get tearing for us. However, no matter what an emergency situation it was to reveal that kind of power so easily, it's quite different from a big guild that emphasizes the importance of security. The protagonist said with some hopelessness in his voice that yes, we can talk, and exhaled deeply. And even if I've used rental pay, a guildmaster shouldn't be bowing his head in front of just anyone, he added. Shin Junso, the guild will no longer try to bother you. And of course I won't follow you around either. But that doesn't mean we are giving up. This is the first opportunity I've had. Let's sign a contract. The head of the guild once again tried to recruit our hero, but he stood firm, watching his words as if expecting this reaction. I'm sure you will like these conditions, the guildmaster added. We travel back to the city where we find 2 people we know from before, in the guild headquarters. It's nice to see you again, said the guild with the red head. This room was a place where our protagonist was sitting, and the assistant of the guild leader was sitting opposite him. I'm the attending secretary of the Overkill Guild, Min Hisu. I'm in charge of today's contract proceedings. I'm in your hands. She introduces herself to our protagonist. Then we realize he is here to sign a contract. Thank you, said our hero. The guildmaster said he would contact me immediately, but who knew it would be the next morning? To which the girl replied, the guildmaster told me to proceed with things as quickly as possible. But where is this? I feel like we have come pretty far in. Our protagonist asked our guild leader's assistant in surprise. To which she replied, it's the special reception room inside of the Overkill Guild, and it's a place with a particularly strict security. If you are worried about a leak, there is no need. Read this. Here is the contract with the conditions the guildmaster mentioned to you inside of the dungeon. Although it will take some time, we can also change the contents of the contract. Please speak comfortably. Our hero took a quick look at the current provisions in the contract and found himself in full compliance with the previously promised conditions. It's just as he said in the dungeon. It feels more real to see it organized like this, he added. There are no issues. Let's proceed as is. He then confidently placed the contract on the table and motioned it toward the assistant. And we are transported back to the dungeon where the guild leader and our hero are negotiating the terms of the contract. That was so easily signed on all sides, the main character was surprised at the role the guild leader offered him to be a support again. He also explained to him that under the terms of the contract, it would be an unofficial position, and he still does not understand the reasons for his refusal to join the guild. The guild leader explained to him that for certain reasons he had to stay in the world hiding his natural identity. In return, if he joined, it would be provided with everything he needed, any materials, any rights to the gate. Also, the issue of security is very strong. And for this reason, the contract will be sent discreetly. Our protagonist was somewhat puzzled after hearing these words, not understanding why the head of the guild is so good to him. To which the head of the guild replied to him that it's not so simple. As in any contract, each party has its own obligations, so everyone will get his share. The guild leader also made it clear to him that he was not pushing our hero to sign the contract. If he did not like the fees he would have to pay, he could refuse. And even if our protagonist will just receive support but will not help, it will be fine with the head of the guild. The purpose of this contract in the first place is to create a connection between you and the Overkill Guild, and block you from joining other guilds. Accepting a commission is no more or less than a token of your sincerity. They had no sooner finished their conversation than they were interrupted by men in black suits and black glasses. They were special representatives of the Hunters Association. We are from the investigation team of the Hunter Association. Guildmaster, are you okay? We need to go. I will hear your response outside. I hope for a positive response, the guild leader added as he walked away. And if you feel burdened, there is no need. Your ability to me has even greater value than this. We are back at guild headquarters, where the contract is being signed. According to my original plan, I wanted to leave a firm impression on Yoon Taeyeon and continue a relationship with the Overkill Guild without entering it. Well, regardless, this is good for me. Thinking every detail through, our hero signs the contract. When can I receive this support? He asked the girl, and she replied to him, you can start even now. Let me know if there is anything you want. There is a present from the guildmaster to commemorate signing the contract. I heard he found a useful item in Arachne's room. The girl added, a present? He was amazed. He opened the box, and his face lit up with the pleasant light of pink mana. He thanked the guild leader's assistant and put his new gift in his backpack. He also handed her a list of materials he needed. After quickly going through the list, the girl noted that the list was quite large, and she would be able to prepare it only within a week. I might be crossing the line, but I don't think these materials will be of much help for you. He told her he wasn't going to use everything on that list. He was just going to give it to someone. After these words, our protagonist went to the lobby of the guild headquarters. He was waiting to meet someone who was nevertheless a little late. From all the people who were around, suddenly appeared a silhouette familiar to him. It was the very girl he was waiting for. A rank hunter, Han Jia. She was a modest-looking girl with long blonde hair and glasses on her eyes that epitomized her rich inner world and intelligence. But behind the modesty was a Various of unrivaled strengths and skill, who could fight the most formidable monsters in any dungeon. And after the player selection, this is the hunter prodigy who was called God Archer. This is amazing character in our story that we get to know better. With an uncertain step and trembling shyness, the girl approached the information desk. 2 office staff looked at her carefully and asked how they could help her. I came to request a training use gate entrance. Looking away, she whispered softly. The girl then handed them her ID card. The office staff was happy to see such a high-level hunter and offered her a C-level training. The girl replied that she wanted to take D-level training instead. Both office staff were surprised. They asked her if she really wanted to take the D-level training. It hasn't been long since this hunter has been measured as an A-ranked awakened, but still. But even considering that she barely has any experience, she has only gone into gates a few times to begin with. The monitor screen showed the full details of her dungeon raids. Although I've seen awakened of the lower rank giving up the awakened life altogether, I have never seen an A rank like this, the office employee thought to herself. The girl was handed a huge pile of papers to sign. I don't know why, but this person will soon be demoted. The experienced office employee continued her thought process while the girl signed the papers. An awakened's first rank is based on their unconditional mana amount. When the blue energy poured out of the cracks, mana flowed into everyone's body, but the proportion of mana that everyone can absorb is different. The more mana the body can hold, the better the abilities you manifest. So their association began to analyze the amount of everyone's mana. It was a regulation for those who have absorbed more than a fixed amount of mana to be hailed as awakened. And further, they started dividing people into ranks based on the mana amount. Of course, your rank isn't fixed. Even if you are of a low rank, you can stack your performance through dungeon rates. And if you get acknowledged by the association, you can be promoted. Of course, the opposite can occur as well. I have finished filling it in. With joining her voice, the girl said and held forward a stack of papers. Yes, let me help you with the application. Do you have a partner you are going to go in with? It was a standard question to hear for such a procedure. No, I don't, she replied. Then I will put you up on the partner recruitment list. Our rules state that you need to go in at least groups of 2. There aren't any requests for D-rank training gates so far, so you may have to wait for a bit. The girl listened carefully to what she was told and wondered if she could go along. It's possible if you have a license permit for soloing gates, but it doesn't seem that you are registered for that. You need to go through a test for that. Would you like to sign up? The girl was not prepared for this turn of events, and with a smile she said no, she would rather wait. The next second, an office employee made an announcement based on her file. Your first hunter qualification renewal is in 1 month. After hearing that, the girl shattered because she didn't expect to go through additional qualifications so soon. You probably saw through the messages, but in order to renew your A-rank hunter qualification, you need to either have several experiences with the C-ranked or above gates, or pass the A-ranked actual test. For you, it will probably need to be the test. You will probably receive a message about the test soon. And I hope you pass. Good luck. The office employee finished her long speech, and the girl thanked her with a short thank you. All the while our protagonist stood by and watched. As she was leaving the building, she held her phone tightly in her hands as if looking for some kind of help. I should have just requested online. I must have been crazy to come to a place with so many people like this. I made up my mind to come here with the thought that I can't get devoted. Let's get a grip. It's a D-rank gate, so what happened last time won't happen again. If I take my time to start again. Before she could finish her thought, she had a new notification on her phone in the email. She said, I need to wait, but the request has come already. The rank is D rank as expected. I was going to go in alone anyway, so it doesn't matter. I should click agree quickly. And at the same time, as usual, a crowd of gawkers gathered near the next gate guarded by the man in black. Among these crowd were also hunters, including our girl. It's been a while since I've worn this, it feels awkward. A white shirt with rolled-up sleeves, dark-fitted pants, and a quiver of arrows behind her back, a bow in her hand. This is what she looked like to everyone around. Suddenly someone came out of the crowd and called her name. She turned to look and saw a young man with a smile walking towards her. "I'm Shin, the support. I hope we get along well." With joy in the voice, our main character introduced himself to the girl. She told him her name, greeted him in return, and bowed. "I apologize for being late. Let's go in," he said. She is a ranger class hunter who was first estimated as a rank. However, after her continued failed tests, she is one of the only awakens who were demoted to C rank. So the reason that Hanja, who was like that, was able to receive the title of the God Archer was because after she was chosen as a player, she was able to find her hidden talent. And I know what that talent is. It's a talent that you can discover even if you don't become a player. And I'm going to awaken Hanjia's talent today. That was the interesting plan and the main idea of our hero. The guards let them go forward, and they entered a new dungeon whose nature was magnificent. Well, they didn't have time to take a step before they hid in the bushes. But there were a lot of trolls and other monsters around them. The girl carefully peeked out from behind the bushes and observed their behavior. There were indeed a lot of monsters around. The girl didn't regret buying a special bracelet that detects the mana of the monsters around here. She turned around to tell him something. "I apologize, but honestly I was going to go alone. So is it okay for me to kill the monsters alone? I will give you all of the booty collected and compensate you as well." To which he told her he didn't mind the outcome at all. "If you need help, let me know. I can at least provide arrows," he said. In a quiet voice she thanked him and walked slowly forward. She prepared her first arrow, drew the bowstring and took aim. A little nervous, she released her fingers and the arrow flew forward with great force. It was as if it was a sniper shot. The beam of white light hit the first monster in the head like a bullet, piercing it through and through. She struck one monster after another. They of course tried to do something in response, but they failed. Every arrow she fired exploded on the day state with a blast of white light, completely destroying the monsters. As if nothing was going on, our hero sat back and watched the fight. Haven't seen her fighting before. She became a player in a long time. Her pure destructive power exceeds an A-ranked hunter by far. But that's meaningless if she can't aim. 1 of 3 arrows will be effective. That's my best record. At this rate I will be able to shoot at least 4 more rows. Let's end things in 2 shots. She had already drawn the bowstring for another shot when suddenly, there was a deafening sound. With his special musical instrument, one of the monsters made a shrill sound. And when she heard that sound she froze in amazement. That sound didn't mean anything good to her, because the rest of the monsters in the area started to run to that spot. She wasn't trying to hit any particular monster anymore. She was just shooting forward. The device on her arm kept making loud noises, signaling the large number of monsters approaching. She was surrounded. She was confused and didn't know which way to shoot now. The monsters had no choice but to attack her from behind while she was distracted. In the next second a huge number of lightsabers appeared around the monsters. It was our protagonist who started to help his colleague. She was surprised to see so many mana swords because she didn't expect his level to have such a weapon. This wall of swords helped her. The monsters couldn't attack her. She didn't understand what to do next. Our protagonist advised her to shoot a bow in the direction of the bushes where a large number of monsters had gathered. She should shoot there with all her remaining energy. She was visibly nervous about the whole complicated situation. Using all her remaining energy, she drew the bowstring and prepared to shoot. Her shot then made a huge pass right in front of them through the center of the dense thicket. She turned to him and asked him what to do next, and he told her that they should just run now because she had helped them make a way to escape the monsters. Before she could fully understand his words, the next second she was pulling her by the hand and they were running away from a large number of evil monsters with great speed. It seems that they have come to the entrance of another cave. They had time to take a little break. The girl was able to catch her breath and our hero watched the entrance door with interest and prepared his flashlight. The girl was glad that they were able to escape the chase. Well, why had they been able to escape? Perhaps it was only because the goblins didn't pursue them further. Something was stopping them. There is something strange here. So much happened lately that she was tired of all these thoughts in her head. The girl couldn't stop wondering why our hero was so calm. In any case, there was no need to stay here any longer, she thought to herself. Then she informed our hero that she was going to leave this place. She offered to give her colleague the previously agreed upon share of the loot. Our hero, as if he didn't hear her words, answered her that we can't leave this place now, because goblins are now in search of their abusers, so it would be foolish if they start looking for a way back right now. There is no other choice but to wait for the goblins to leave, especially since they lost their sense of escape while fleeing from the monsters. The girl was not happy about this news because she expected to leave right away. Our hero answered her that they could wait half a day until the goblins leave, and maybe even longer. She grabbed her head with both hands because she was dumbfounded by those words. But she didn't know that it was only a lie, a cunning lie that our protagonist had invented in order to fulfill what he had planned earlier. He kept telling her it would take 30 minutes for the goblins to come down, because they are a different kind of monster with little coordination, so they can't go after their abusers for long. So far, everything was going exactly as our protagonist had planned. In his head, he never seems to marvel at the elegance of his plan. And this girl believes everything he tells her. One problem worries him. He needs the girl to go with him to that cave. But our hero doubted whether she can do it because she is still nervous. At this time, she came up to him and apologized for her behavior, making a bow forward. Said that it was all her fault. That if she had fought the goblins well, they wouldn't be having problems like they were now. Needless to say, she was going to fight the goblins by herself. Now it turns out that our protagonist saved here. Even in her head, she kept criticizing herself for causing a bunch of problems again. She kept blaming herself that she shouldn't have gone down into that dungeon. Our hero showed a mystery of psychology, telling her that she should pull herself together and fulfill one of his requests, since she felt guilty. She immediately forgot about her excitement and began to ask him what this request was. With a smirk on his face, our hero looked at her and said they had plenty of time to discuss it. Moments later, they found themselves inside the cave. There was a huge amount of crystals everywhere, and the faint light of a flashlight barely illuminated the passage ahead. Still doubting herself, the girl asked him if he really needed her help, and even though she had a A rank, she didn't have much experience in dungeon raiding. She kept talking and explained that she didn't understand what elite monster he was talking about. The hero reassured her that since this was her first training, that it was understandable why she didn't know about it. This information is not available to the general public. He explained to her that instead of a normal boss, there is a special elite monster in this dungeon, and that this cave is where this boss lives. He also told her that for certain reasons, for his own personal reasons, he had to defeat this monster, but he couldn't do it before. As if to inspire her confidence, he told her that she was the first to accept him into her team as support in this raid. He thought to himself that he might have gone a little overboard. The girl stopped and said with firm confidence that she was willing to help him. She told herself that it was the right decision to help him, because he actually saved her life. But the most important thing is that she realizes how painful it is when you are not called to the team. She stopped and was in her thoughts for a while. But the next second her thoughts were interrupted by the loud sound of the bracelet that detected the monster. Its large green foot stepped forward loudly. Our protagonist dedicated in the direction of the monster with his flashlight to get a better look at it. Yes, it was exactly him, an elite monster, a huge-sized goblin with a mask on his face and a spiked mace in his hand. Nothing good could be expected from his appearance. The girl shouted that our hero should move aside because she prepared to shoot. Even this monster is elite, after all. This is a level D dungeon, so she only needs to hit the monster once to make it end quickly. With great speed, a wide beam of light shot forward. She was happy that she had hit it, but at the same time it turned out not to be able to hit at all. The monster was able to block her arrow strike. She didn't succeed. She realized she had made another mistake and prepared for fire again at maximum power. But her hands were shaking with fear, and she could barely hold the bowstring. Her face was covered with sweat. She couldn't pull herself together. She had to take that shot. Make it all costs and urgently. That monster was very close. Just a little more and he would strike her with his mace. In the next second, with a sharp movement of his arm, our hero threw her aside, chilling her from another danger. She hit the ground hard and saw our hero come close to the goblin. In the next moment, a terrible force of blow fell in the direction of our hero. Large clouds of dust soared upwards. It seemed to the girl that our protagonist was dead. Old memories swept over her in a wave. She remembered how one of the hunters had told her earlier that she couldn't even shoot a bow, and that arrow had almost hit the hunter. She'd been asked for compensation for moral injury, but she replied that she couldn't hit someone even if she missed. But the team member was against her because the girl had a level A rank. She was eliminated from the team and rumors were spread. She couldn't walk a step in the guild headquarters without being described by others. The things the others hunters said about her was awful. Many said that he really had talent, but she was wasting it, that she supposedly can't even kill the simplest monster, and that if she continues like this, then why is she still a hunter? The images of memories faded away, and she found herself alone with the monster in that cave again. She should have given up the hunter level back then, because now it was half fault that another person had gotten hurt. At this time, our hero, who was able to dodge the monster's last strike, showed up. One by one, he unleashed his magic swords to repel the goblin's blows. He once again diverted his attention to save the girl, and while the monster looked in his direction, he gave instruction to the girl to do strictly whatever he said. She had to first of all be sure to come down and buy some time for him to activate his ability, asking her to look closely at this large monster and launch a single arrow with all its power. Meanwhile, he continued to dodge the blows of the ferocious goblin to avoid getting killed. She didn't understand what feelings she should arouse in herself to fulfill his request. It was a completely uncomfortable situation, and all her sensations and feelings evaporated. But the next second she felt something special inside her. She realized where she needed to aim. She could see clearly where to shoot. Her gaze changed, and her hand reached out to draw the arrow with the bowstring. Her hands no longer trembled, and she stood firmly on her feet. One single arrow and it would all be over. Her left eye became a sniper scope and glowed with a bright yellow light. She made a promise to herself to do it quickly, and in one shot, after the arrow flew out, the loud sound of the fireball flying forward defended everything around her. She was something completely different. This was her new ability. The monster froze in bewilderment, awaiting its demise. Our hero rejoiced that it seemed she had managed to activate her ability despite the harsh conditions. Her arrow hit the center of the spiked maze. It was the monster's Achilles heel. The yellow beam of light shattered the spiked maze and then tore the monster to pieces. To the great joy of our heroes, their faces were glowing with happiness, and the girl was frozen in amazement, standing with her eyes wide open. At this time, the arrow-struck monster was still on his feet, while he had lost his left arm and had a huge hole in the middle of his body. He staggered for a few more seconds, and after a moment he fell backwards, to the delight of our archer, who exhaled a deep and relieved breath. At this time, our hero approached here and explained that he had been forced to aggravate her feelings in such a situation. It was necessary for her to finally wake up, although it was a little risky. With a smile on her face and holding out his hand, he let her know it was over. She confusedly asked him who he really was, and why it looked like he knew this was going to happen. After calming her down a little, he advised her not to rush because they still had plenty of time, and he would answer all her questions. But she couldn't wait to find out what was really the reason for his behavior, and how she had managed to defeat the monster. It seemed that at this time her eyes once again flashed a little with inner emotions, but in the next moment she grabbed her head, realizing that she could not control her feelings from fatigue. It seemed that our hero had foreseen this situation as well. She took her on his shoulders and complained to himself that it was very difficult to make new colleagues now. As he pulled the unconsciousness girl on his shoulders, he realized that at least one situation has been resolved. Once on the surface, the girl was back to her senses, analyzing everything that had happened in the cave. She didn't understand why she had done what she had done, as if she wasn't it herself. Definitely many times she kept apologizing to our hero for her behavior, for disrespecting him even though he had saved her twice already, for suddenly losing consciousness. All this chatter gave him a headache. He wouldn't stop comforting her and telling her it was all right, that everything had turned out just the way he had planned. No one was hurt, and they had defeated all the monsters. It had only been half an hour, so she should pull herself together and stop crying. He reminded her of the pendant he had given her earlier. Holding out his hand, he asked for it back. She dipped her hand deep into her pocket to find the item he wanted. "Here is what you asked for." She held out the pendant to him. The color of the stone had changed, and it looked like a ruby, which meant she had used the stone. Meteoric sensation. A rare item you can only get at the A-rank dungeon Burning Happy's Refuge. The ability of this item is increased senses. When particular conditions are fulfilled, the ability is automatically activated, and the possessor's senses rapidly increase, and during that time it exceeds the scope of humanity, and you can use transcendental senses. But the problem is the difficult conditions. He gave her pendant back. The possessor's emotions need to go to the extreme. For those with Hanjia's personality, the best method is to activate the item using extreme fear, which is why I made the situation so that she'd feel extremely afraid. Although it was going to be difficult, as long as I did it, I would be able to awaken here. But even with the price, there were very few in the market. And I had given up on this method, but to think he'd be able to get it in less than 2 days. Thanks to him, things worked out easily, but this is just the start. Hanja simply experienced being awakened through the item. She needed more practice to attain the level she'd been on in her prime. He asked that she listen to him carefully, and gave her her first assignment. Your first assignment is to create a situation where you can focus solely on monsters. To do that, you need to first change your arrow, he said. Since you are quite powerful, it should be okay for you to change from a short bow to a long bow and shoot from further. Then naturally you will interact less with monsters, and situations where you get scared by monsters like today will lessen. And a few other things you need to know. Before he could say anything, she came up and interacted him, thanking him for everything he'd done for her. The girl told him that at the moment of the highest degree of danger to her life, she was able to feel something from this pendant. It was like the movie The Matrix, when everything was in slow motion, and she could do anything she wanted. She could see exactly where she needed to go and shoot. It was like the painted target was right on the top of the monster. She admitted to him that she didn't feel worthy of the level she had because she wasn't in a position to change anything, which only made her own sense of this dissatisfaction grow. And now she's been able to do so much in the short time since she met him, and for the first time in her life she felt encouraged. She needed to speak out. She turned to our hero to tell him of her desire to go alone, but he didn't let her finish, as if he knew what she was going to say. It will be difficult to do it alone, he told her. He left her his contacts in case she needed them. She was so happy that he had left her his number, that she had blushed with embarrassment. She left him her number too. The next second, a notification on the phone distracted our hero's attention. It was a message from the head of the guild. He had to urgently contact them as soon as he saw this message. Now they were going to leave this dungeon. We go back to the city, to the headquarters of the association, where the guild head is on the phone with our hero. He has assigned him another important task. Our protagonist happily shared with him the recent events in the dungeon. He thanked the head of the guild for the item he gave him. It had helped him a lot. While in the background we see a joyful and smiling girl. The guild leader exhaled a sigh of relief, and was glad that the item had really helped our hero. He thanked him once again for agreeing to help. Standing in his luxurious office, he looked far beyond the horizon and pondered. At that time there was a knock on the office door and his assistant came in. She informed him that the president of the association was here. He was back and they could go to him. With a serious look and no smiles on their faces, they walked down the long corridors to meet their boss. The girl was a little worried because it was in a typical situation. Usually in such situation they sent an official document. It only meant that the president of the association had personally summoned him to his office. Perhaps there is something wrong with the commissions for the remuneration they previously received. This is just speculation. It was possible that the S-level gate had opened, and that was why he had summoned them to him. The guild head spoke to his assistant and shared with her about that fight in the dungeon. He was glad that our hero had agreed to help, and that if the guild leader thought the way he had in the dungeon earlier, everything would be fine. It was a good decision on his part to recruit our hero. His assistant noted that her boss was in a good mood. It must be after that raid in the dungeon with the monster of all spiders. It's all because of the weapon maker. The girl noted that the guildmaster has been acting strangely since signing the contract with our hero. He has given him unlimited support. That's quite shocking and a bold decision. Even though the guild leader's class was a berserker, which makes controlling emotions difficult, the guildmaster is judicious and calm enough to make the right decision than anyone else. Is the weapon maker capable of more than the guildmaster thinks he is? No, it's unlikely. Because his level is D, the girl continued her thought analysis. She would like to see how our hero fights. A guard met them outside the office. He greeted the guildmaster, asking if he came along or with someone. The guildmaster was surprised and asked him a counter-question. Did someone else really have to come? The guard replied that there should be 2 guild heads, but since they didn't come together, then he would be the first to enter the office. The guildmaster asked the guard if he could find out who else was coming. He replied that he didn't need to, and turned towards the man walking towards them. There he was. The guildmaster turned around and heard a familiar voice which did not please him at all. A representative of another guild greeted them with a beautiful expensive suit and purple hair. He noted that he knew about his colleague's recent raids. Unfortunately, it was the same guildmaster who annoyed our heroes. The guildmaster clearly didn't expect to have a good conversation with an old acquaintance. The purple-haired man began to make fun of him and call his guild idiotic, but then he attacked the guildmaster and called him an idiot. The guildmaster stopped him with his hand and said that he had no time for provocations, but the old acquaintance continued to mock them. He said that they supposedly and purposely chose too easy dungeons, and when it turns out that it was the wrong dungeons with the errors, they go down there not to save their colleagues but for profit. All this chatter annoyed our heroes. Even the girl could no longer contain her emotions and threatened the chatter with her fist. Tired of these arguments, the guildmaster asked for the door to the office to be opened. After that, the security representative reported the arrival of the two guild leaders to the president of the association. In a very spacious office, sitting behind a fancy desk, arms folded, the president of the association replied that he could hear their arguments even from here. He invited them in, and noted that they hadn't changed their demeanor in the slightest. The association's office was located in the center of the city in the business district. The guildmaster's assistant rented it from outside. The president of the association informed the two guild heads that he had an urgent task for them. 3 days ago, an unconfirmed gate first appeared and then disappeared in the suburbs. Our guildmaster asked the president of the association if it was an error dungeon, to which he replied that it was simply unconfirmed and that it wasn't even possible to measure the level of mana that was coming from the gate. The man with purple hair was greatly shocked. This rarely happened when the gate couldn't even be measured. Normally, a gate's rank is decided from two things. Firstly, using a special measuring instrument to measure the mana of the gate itself. This is because normally, the gate's calculated final rank is equal to the rank of the monsters inside of the gate. Secondly, by combining the reported contents of the scouts inserted by the association. The president of the association continued speaking. He reminded them that an error dungeons occur when the mana level increases drastically, and that it was different from the current situation where they couldn't even measure mana. Our guildmaster asked if scouts were sent there. Turns out they were. 5 of them. The president of the association forwarded his brow, paused for a moment before saying the following. None of them came back. After saying that, the purple-haired guildmaster threw one foot over the other, revealing the sole of his boot. That was super tactless. He put his hand behind his head and started asking questions as if he was in charge. He was very surprised that he had not been briefed on the current situation. For a moment he even thought that the president of the association wanted to put the blame on him. The president of the association continued to speak. They don't know how long the situation will last. Because if we leave things as they are, there is a high probability that at some point monsters will start appearing from this gate. And it's happened before. It took a lot of effort to deal with them in the city. Therefore, it will be easy if the heads of the two associations unite and head there to find out the situation inside the dungeon. The situation is very critical. There can be no refusals or objections. The president of the association would like to send another guild, but it's currently in another country and cannot join. The situation is serious enough to send 3 guilds together. The association informed them that the deadline for completing the tasks is in 2 days. He will also help them with additional funds and prepare rewards for the best of the hunters. He also informed them that if they needed any additional help, they would be provided with it. Our guildmaster thought about it and asked a question. He wanted to know if it was necessary to send a team that was based only on guild members, to which the president of the association replied that it didn't matter, and since the presence of this gate could cause chaos and panic in the city, they needed to select a team that consisted of only the most experienced and proven people. The guildmaster was pleased to hear those words. At this time we are transported to the headquarters of the Manhwa Guild. With a sudden movement of his hands, the guild leader throws off his jacket, which his assistant barely catch in time. With great speed he hurries to his office and on the way he gives an order. A special team consisting only of hunters of rank A or higher must be formed. Also those who can go to the dungeon in the next few days must be chosen. The guild leader realizes that his rival has a card up his sleeve, as evidenced by the smile at the end of the meeting. The battle between the two guilds is for their reputation in the association. So there will only be one winner, and that winner should be him. but his opponent will not be happy, and he will put that upstart in his place. To do this, he wants to take the risky step of calling one hunter who is not affiliated with the guild. His staff is surprised by this request because, knowing her character, it will be almost impossible to do so. But he asks them to bring her to him by all means, or they will lose their jobs and will never be able to find her in the industry again. His face fills with anger and a desire to punish his rival. He wants to show him that even among the biggest guilds there are levels. 2 days later, we see a group of people standing at the open gate amidst the beautiful forest scenery. They are only 4 people. They are representatives of our guild led by its master. They are waiting for someone and their colleagues are running late. One of the warriors asks what time it is and why the representatives of the other guild are still not there. She gets a reply from his colleague that there are still 5 minutes left, and that the Manhwa guild always does this, but they would be there at the appointed time. She twirls her gun in her fingers in excitement and says that she never liked their manners. While our protagonist stands calmly and patiently waiting to go inside, the girl decided to make a joke. What if she made holes in their heads with her shot, and maybe then they would have manners? To which another hunter, the vice guildmaster, advises her to watch her words by hitting her head with his fist. Fun team. Already sitting on the ground, the girl notes that the blow to the head was too brutal. The warrior with glasses comes close to her and asks her what she meant. In the next second, she is already running away from him. He was clearly hurt by what she said. Our hero knows that the guildmaster's team has excellent team relations. To which the guildmaster replies that although they look strange, but in battle they show themselves at their best. He thanks our hero for agreeing to come. He didn't expect him to do such a thing and thought he would refuse. But for him it's a great honor because earlier the guildmaster helped him with an item that worked well in the dungeon. But that wasn't the only reason why he had come. While they were talking, 2 hunters were fighting on the ground. Hidden quest. Story dungeon open. A story dungeon has appeared. Create an ending to a neglected world and receive rewards. Dungeon open time. 168 hours. It turns out that 5 days ago while watching TV a notification appeared in front of our hero. Usually it was shown only to a very small number of players. He was very surprised that the selection of players hadn't not yet begun, but he had already received this message. And there was no reason to refuse. Even though these dungeons were incredibly difficult, the possible rewards were worth a try after the dungeon was cleared. And some people were even able to awaken new abilities within themselves. He had no idea that this dungeon would be the one they were standing near. Meanwhile, the 2 hunters were still fighting on Earth. The guildmaster turned to our hero and with all the seriousness in his voice told him that he apologized for all the stupid things these idiots could do. Suddenly they stopped fighting because someone's voice came from the bushes. It was the head of another rebel guild with his team. He started making fun of our guild. He pretended that he had a lot of work so he was late. And our guild had a lot of free time so they came early. And they had a lot of free time because all they do is walk through the simplest dungeons. The girl with the gun was furious, but she was stopped by the warrior with dark glasses. He even put his hand over her mouth so she couldn't say a word. To calm her down, he advised her to just ignore the words of the other guildmaster. And this wouldn't just be a meeting between 2 guilds. The media is already making a big fuss about which one will be the strongest. The head of the rebel guild took a closer look and saw our hero. He began to tease and said that is it really the hidden card up his sleeve which he guessed in the office of the president of the association? He thought there was going to be someone special here. But this is just some kid off the street. It was like he was going on a tourist trip in those clothes. A sense of growing rage came over him. Either seriously or jokingly, he started yelling at our hero saying that he didn't understand where he was going. He continued to swear and say unpleasant words while one of his female employees asked him to calm down and introduce their new team member. Her face was still hard to make out, but her voice was already audible. She asked him, "Weren't you the one who said you didn't have time to lose?" She said that they don't have time to argue, therefore they need to pack up and go to the dungeon. Her face seems familiar to us as well as the behavior of a rebel guildmaster. The girl with the gun didn't hide her surprise at the introduced team member of the rebel guild. Our guildmaster knew almost every one of them. They were the most experienced and best warriors in all of Korea, a truly stellar lineup, but he didn't know anything about this girl at all. One of our team members rejoiced that this would be a simple outing with such a lineup of warriors. But our hero realized that nothing simple was to be expected here. Because in his previous life this particular dungeon had failed to clear. Of the 8 members of the team that went there, only one Yoon Taeyeon was able to get out, and it was only because he used his special abilities. Then the gate suddenly disappeared, and this case remained unsolved, in which 7 high-level people went missing.